Hello, this is National Chess Master Rats here to continue my video series on the team match between my video lessons group and CARPE DIEM. This was played down on board 150 of a 210 board match. Our man Nycdj versus LupNegru, and let's have a look at the game. All these results coming in, basically we have people playing too quickly. 7, 8, 9, 10 days into the match, they're getting 63 moves in this game. So it's pretty much out of the book, although I'm sure this position has been reached before. The game's even. Black should have nothing to fear here. This gets the tempo on the light squared bishop. Now the bishop goes back to e2, but neither side really has any weakness in their position that can be exploited. Neither side can break the position open for any quick attack. So to win this game, there's going to have to be a mistake made. And here's a mistake right off the bat. What is this move? Okay, it takes away the best square for the knight. It weakens the king side. It won't lose the game, but you can't keep making little mistakes. The position will just go downhill. So how do you handle a move like that? Well, you're not going to exploit it right away generally. Just develop your pieces and prepare to castle. Does the bishop belong on d7? I'm sorry, d6 or e7? D6, it points at a square that h2, which could be a target if white castles kingside, which you most likely will, but it may allow a later annoying bishop g5 pin. We'll see how it plays out. Look at the differences. Okay, but bishop e7 is simple and conservative. The bishop will come into play later. Now here white strikes in the center, attempting to give black an isolated queen pawn. Black can take, and if white takes back with his pawn, they both have isolated queen pawns, but it also clears c3 for the white knight. Why give white a chance to improve the position of his pieces? Okay, just castle. If you end up spending a tempo with this bishop, if you lose a tempo, that's fine. It's getting on a very nice diagonal. Just castle is the correct move here. Okay, so cd4, not necessarily the best move. Let me just kind of illustrate. I like to illustrate some of these principles. If you go here, take, if he takes, to give black the isolated pawn, white's far from blockading this pawn. Remember, he's taken away f3 from his knight. His knight's not going to get there to d4 too easily. This knight can get there eventually, but it's going to take a while. And it's very unlikely white is going to be able to get a knight on both of these squares, which would be the ideal position. Come on, color it in. Sometimes the thing is in a little slow. See, I'm right-clicking b3 and I'm right-clicking d4. That's where white would like to get two knights. And it doesn't want to color them in. Okay, it probably will as soon as I move on. Anyway, let's. Black is fine here. Plenty of free room for his pieces. What's white doing? His knights don't have good squares. The bishops don't really have good diagonals. This is a nice position for black. Okay, let's back it up. So, black elects to capture. Now, white could take with the queen, but the queen's going to get tempoed with knight c6. Again, if he takes back with the pawn, which I think is the best move, this clears c3 for the knight. So taking was a mistake because it helps white get his pieces into play, and white takes with the queen. Okay, well, that's going to allow a natural knight c6. If not now, next move. Might as well do it now. Now the queen likes to go to a4 in a lot of these similar type positions, but it can't because there's a pawn in the way. So the queen's going to have to find a new home. Okay, so she goes back to d1. I've seen this happen a lot in these matches. The queen comes out and it goes back. Black is just picking up a huge development advantage here. The weakness that he has isn't really a major weakness because whenever you have an isolated queen pawn, you always have freedom to move your pieces. And in this case, there's plenty of open lines around that isolated queen pawn. There's a couple of half open, well, there's a full open file and a half open file. Black is starting to stand better here. Okay, and good castle. Just keep developing. Now here's a case where having the bishop on e7 is a little better. this knight is not pinned. You're not tied down to preventing double pawns. So black should just continue to develop. Bishop f5, maybe queen b6, trying to exploit b2. Both look like excellent candidate moves right off the top of my bat. Now I didn't expect that move. Knight e5. Where's the knight going? Well, maybe he's trying to put it on c4. Maybe he wants to give white a chance to give up the bishop pair. It would have been better to develop another piece. But, the move is okay. Okay, now this is an unprovoked exchange. If you're going to make this trade, I have no problem if someone wants to make the trade, at least let them stop and play h6. That spends a tempo, okay? This gives black, in effect, a free move. White needs to get his pieces developed and get himself castled. And, if he puts this knight on h3, he runs the risk that he's going to have double pawns. Another alternative is to try, give up castling kingside and try to castle queenside. But I don't know. These white pawns are weak. This bishop is just totally misplaced. He's almost going to have to play knight h3, and if black takes, just accept the double pawns and go for broke and play for an attack. White's starting to get a really bad game. It's starting to look like. Okay, so mistake to take on f6. Okay, who's sending me a chat request? You'll have to wait. Well, I'll tell her hi. Somebody I know. Making a video now. Okay. Anyway, bishop d3. So now white decides, well, I'll have to give up the bishop pair if I'm going to get my knight into play. Now a good move would just simply be, let's go stick a rook on e8, okay? Or you could take it and give a check and get a pin. Black's starting to really get a good position here. Anyway, rook e8. Knight e2 is pretty much forced because black's threatened to win immediately with knight takes d3. Okay, now I've been talking about development. This bishop needs to get into play. Where are you going to put it? Let's see. See, this bishop should have gone to f5 earlier when it had its chance. Bishop d7 eyeballs the a pawn. Maybe then bishop c6 and try to activate the bishop along the long diagonal. Take the bishop, then play on d3, play g6 with the idea of putting the bishop on f5, and the weakness in the kingside pawn structure will be fine. Black has the two bishops. That's probably what I'd opt for just at my first glance. Okay, queen c7, that develops the queen. We'll go for that. Castles. Now here becomes a tall pawn. This bishop doesn't really have mobility. Since black was ahead in development, this queen could have gone to b6 and move a go 2 and gained a tempo. Although that lets white develop his queen. But that's okay. You take the bishop. Yeah, let's look at that. Let's back that up. What about queen b6? It forces white into making some kind of concession. Well, let's see. Yeah, queen c2, knight takes d3, then queen takes b2, and he's in trouble. So white has to play something like b3 or b4, and then then maybe take the bishop and play g6, and go ahead and give up this d pawn. Let's take a look. Let's see. Watch this. b4, knight takes, queen takes. Now I'm going to play g6, and the idea is I'm giving up this pawn for pressure. And look at this pin. White can't castle right now. It's illegal because his king goes into check, and even if he could, the knight's pinned. Black has two bishops raking the board. What about here's a potent move. Let's put the bishop here with tempo. You're blocking the file, but the next goal is to stick it on c4. And I think it's going to get there. What can white do? You know, queen d3, bang, another rook comes into play, back up the queen, and bingo, black is winning. Look what bishops can do in an open board. So queen b6 was a pretty good move instead of queen c7. Do we blame it on moving too fast? Possibly. I mean, I'm finding these moves a little quicker. Mostly comes from experience. You know, having held a master ratings earned way back in 1981 and played thousands and thousands of games. But anyway, queen c7 wasn't the best move. Queen b6 was a little better. But now the bishop's becoming a tall pawn, and white's maybe going to catch up in development. Knight a3. Got to get that knight somehow into the game. Okay, let's move forward. Rook e8. Now there's a win of a pawn with queen check. He doesn't play it. What was wrong with winning a pawn? I don't know. Got me. Okay, now the pawn threat is gone, but it's still there. Actually, knight takes, queen b6, check. Does he play it? No, he plays g6. So I see. Okay, white had well, you're guarding this. Excuse me, I have to sneeze. It's so funny how I sneeze every video I make almost. Every private lesson I always have a sneeze. This eliminated the threat on h7, but it could have been eliminated by knight takes, queen takes, and then queen b6 check, and you're going to bag this pawn. Black is not paying attention. Okay, now weak move, h3. What is this? Okay, why would someone want to make this move? Are you trying to keep you out of g4? Well, you can't go to g4 anyway. Maybe it's a preparation move to play f4 so that this can't be played, so that knight g4 can't be played. But white doesn't have time to make these kind of moves. White needed to tuck his king in the corner and get rid of this threat that black keeps missing. Queen check, followed by knight takes bishop and queen takes b2. You can't afford to just weaken your position. You just can't. So black exploits the weakness by occupying a nice diagonal. Okay, that's good, but you know, build up on the position. Now you can stick the bishop on g6, or not g6, g3. No, you can't. The knight's covering it. But I think the win of the pawn is still there. No, it's gone now. Knight takes, the rook can take. Black missed his chance. Okay, so f5, shutting in this bishop, preventing a possible sacrifice down there. I don't understand f5. There's tempo moves here. Knight takes. Yeah, well, you know, it doesn't prevent it. If rook takes, you now have bishop f5. So this doesn't. Knight takes, queen b3 check, king moves, queen takes b2. Bang. Oh, game, you know, clear advantage black. Am I missing something? See here, if rook takes, you know, boom, pinning the rook, right? I don't see any counter shot for white. If queen takes, here's the check. Now what's white going to do? You got several ways to get out of the check. Put the queen on. Oh wait, here's the refutation. Queen d4. See, this bishop h4 wasn't a good move. The bishop falls under attack. So let's assume that, rather than going back, let's assume that white plays here. This is a very similar position without the bishop on h4. When this queen comes down to b2, black's got plenty of potential threats here. If we were attacking the rook, I suppose the knight would have to move. You know, again, this bishop can come into play. I mean, this game is just turning in black's favor quickly. Okay, so let's back it up to what actually happened. So the rook went to d1 and f5. I just don't like that move. You know, now look at this bishop. Where's it going? Ugh. Okay. f4. So that was white's intention when he played h3, was to drive the knight away. Now knight goes to c6. Okay, now black needs to play for d4 at some point to activate this bishop. Okay. G3. Wow, White's kingside pawn structure is really getting weak. Just retreat the bishop and let it stay weak. Okay, White finally almost getting his development complete at move 22. Okay, now he finds the check. Okay, and the king is exposed. And White's answer to activate the bishop is to not activate it and put it back on F7 to clear the E file. D4 was certainly playable. Let's see, D4. Threatens the check. Get this bishop activated. On pawn takes, knight takes, and if knight takes, queen takes, you're getting this check in. D4 is just begging to be played. Maybe White tries to get rid of the light squared bishops. Maybe White wants to trade the queens. Okay, fine. You can trade queens. No, you can't trade queens. That bishop's on B3. See, I make one move blunders all the time. Okay, back here. Okay, let's try this. Okay, that forces the bishop off, but maybe it doesn't. What if I play D3 here, sacking a pawn? The point is, if you play here, I'm back to this check. And I've just given up a pawn to do this. And look at that nice bishop. Where's your king going to go? You're going to step into a pin. More pressure, rook E3. You're going to go to H2. And, this is how you analyze. You're just looking for active moves. Woo, look at this check. I think that's checkmate. Bang. See, all kinds of possibilities. Now, White can probably construct a defense to this, but this is how you analyze a correspondence game. You're looking for moves and checking out variations. You're not just playing the first move that strikes your fancy. And obviously, Black isn't taking much time on this because I think these are all easy moves to see. Active moves, threats, captures, threats, activating pieces. Okay, so King G2, he didn't play D4. He played the bishop back. Rook E1, Rook E3. Okay, that's a good square for the rook. The potentials of the mates I was showing, those are even better. Now F2, access to F2 by the black queen is blocked. Now White's finally getting ready to blockade that isolated queen pawn. Remember earlier I was talking about how hard it was for White to blockade that pawn? He's about to do it. White might survive this. And White creates a weakness. Instead of blockading, he weakens C3. Gosh, wish chess was so easy if White opponents would always be so cooperative. Instead, I have to just go through these long maneuvers. Okay, what are you going to do? You can't put this knight here. There's a pin, but you can put the other knight there. Maybe you can't. Maybe you can't do it. No, Black's got too much firepower on that square. Well, anyway, you can get this rook out of the pin and get ready to do it. B4. Whoops. B4 just seems bad. Why weaken a square? Why? What's the point? Use your pieces. This rook still isn't in the game. Putting this rook on this square, at least, maybe you can bring it up here and have more freedom to maneuver that rook. Got to find where you're going to put it. Or do you want it, since you weaken C3, you're going to end up developing this rook to C1 on a defensive mode? Okay, let's move on. King G7. Okay, what's that do? Well, it guards the bishop on F6, which was attacked by nothing. Well, just careful maneuvering. Okay, now we see the point of B4. Black wants this pawn structure. Drive the queen off, but doesn't entirely drive the queen off that diagonal. She could come to A7. Probably put it on C7. Nope, back to D8. Okay, now he gets the blockade. Now oh, wait a minute, does that hang something? Let's see. I was thinking it hung something earlier. What if takes? Okay. I guess it doesn't hang anything. No. Gonna stop. No, wait. So on the queen, you got to take care of the queen. Guess you have to. I think it's going to hang something. Let's see. Can't take with the knight. Okay, so now rook takes, rook takes, rook takes, knight takes. Voila. And black is bagged a clear pawn. And once he solves the problem of this bishop, black should have a routine win here. Okay, so the knight went to d4, but black didn't take it. Okay. Maybe you saw something I didn't. I mean, I can't be 100% accurate on all this analysis, but this is how you get started. I'm finding moves that seem to win. Well, when you're playing correspondence chess, you check a little further to make sure that your opponent doesn't have a booby trap set for you. Because you see, this is how correspondence chess was played back in the old days when we played by postcard. You would sit and spend 2 or 3 hours on a move, even 20, 30 minutes. Can uncover so much. I mean, this video length right now is 21 minutes. And I've made countless suggestions in over the course of these 28 moves. Certainly, if either side even if you're not as good as me, and I don't expect you to be as good as me, you can be as good as me if you'll take your time. You just examine these active moves, and everything comes naturally. It's easy. Okay, so now white decides to get rid of the threat on d4. Might be a wise choice. Might not. Could he? What if he? White's starting to get the better game here. This bishop is so horrible, and he got the blockade of the pawn. I'm thinking maybe, I don't know, swap one set of rooks. That brings this rook into play. Oh, these pawns are weak. Okay. Oops. It does. Whoops. I'm hitting the wrong buttons here. Okay. No, I'm not. Okay. He doesn't take right away. He takes on e1, takes back. Now, how is he going to take back? If you take back with the queen, the pawn stays isolated. If you take back with the pawn, a6 drops. Okay, I'm going to stop here. Take there first. Now takes with the queen. Now there's problems on c3. So maybe that pawn's doomed. Yep, looks like it's gone. Okay, so the knight takes c6 didn't work. And black's just bagging pawns. And black is now 2 clear pawns ahead with a routine win. I assume it's routine. Uh-oh, look at that. Would you look at that? Okay, black has a routine win and obviously moved too fast. How could you miss knight d7 check? Because you're playing blitz chess. Because, just there. So, wow. Okay, now white has a winning game. Black, all these wins that black missed, great moves he missed. Even though he's left with a winning ending, he's now thrown it away. White is now winning this. Okay, but black ends up winning. Surprise, surprise. You should have lost, black, and especially because you moved too fast. I just kind of maneuver around a little bit. Now, it should be a routine win for white. Oh yeah, I remember looking at this game. Yeah, I remember the ending now. Okay, white goes about this wrong. So white's just as guilty as black. White moves too fast. The simplest winning method is put the knight on f3. Bag this pawn, and then you eventually are going to bag this pawn. You keep the black king shut out. You'll win this pawn, and the white king will just end up coming down here and eating up all these pawns. Let's take a quick look at that. Okay, what's black going to do? Well, he can't do much with his king side pawns. So let's try the queen. Let's push it. Where are you going to go? I'm just going to blockade it. Now, the fun thing about a knight is it can lose the tempo. So I'm just going to put it back here and force your king away from your pawns. Let's see. How are we going to do this? If you advance that pawn too far, it's going to be a goner. So let's see. I don't know. Knight e2 doesn't make sense. Because it doesn't have a square. Well, maybe it does. Black pretty much is relegated to shuffling his king. And it's probably a quicker way to do this, but you have time to analyze. You look it up. Black's only chance is divert the white king and then enter with his king, but here he's got some drawing chances. They can't play king f3. But white's getting his king back. Okay, maybe black draws by the hair of his chinny chin chin in this variation. So I've clearly done something wrong, but you can't tell me that black can draw this. When we reach this position, you can't tell me black can draw this. He can't. Okay? It just can't be done. This is a win for white. But what white does is white elects a totally different approach. Instead of playing knight f3, he goes after the black pawns and instead of stopping to at least get one and restrain the other, he starts going after these pawns, and then therefore the black queenside pawns stay dangerous. White plays knight d7, and let's see what happens. Now black has to get some counterplay going, and there comes some counterplay. And look at that. Gotta stop it. Now the king penetrates. White's collecting pawns, but look at those black pawns. And now I think white can hold a draw just missed his draw. He had to get his knight back into play right now. King c1 is going to allow black to queen with check. The drawing method was knight e3. And then let's see. d2. Now you play here. King c2. Now you have a check. Okay. Now black has to be extremely careful. If king d1, suddenly knight f3 check, and this pawn falls. So where's black going to go? Black's going to go here. Now, white to play. Might even have a win here. Let's see. How about this move for starters? Knight takes. The point is, if you take my knight, I'm putting my king on d1. See? Kind of tricky, huh? So, did white actually have a win here? Let's see. Where are you going to put the king? e1. Here's this check. Now we're going to run over here. Maybe this just draws by the skin of black's teeth once again. So it's great to play a good game of chess and play the right moves and find the right resources, because you learn something. Because the true test is an over the board game when you can't move the pieces around, but you need to be able to see these possibilities. And clearly white, white didn't stop to look at them. And wow, there's going to be a long video on two people that really move fast, but I guess that's okay, because it just shows how much you can see in a correspondence game if you take your time and look at the possibilities. So king c1 was just losing. And look at this knight. He managed to get down there, collect one pawn, and threaten another one. Black just started activating his pawns, and now the knight's coming back too late. Black comes in with check, and we get a queen, and now it's all over but the shouting. Okay, so much for that game. I'm certain that was a win for white after he picked up the bishop, but leave that to the players to figure out. And both of you only have yourselves to blame for, number one, not winning, or number two, getting into losing position when you were winning, and then somehow winning it by your opponent being guilty of what you were doing, playing too quick. Okay, let's get the other game up. And I know this one, I remember this now is coming up. I've got a lot of games ended. I've been looking at them and they kind of run together after a while. But white missed a win here and it just went into a draw. Let me flip the board, and I'll go a little quicker on this game probably. So, okay, here, look at this, H3. Terrible, 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 bad move. What are you doing? You know, black's not going to generate anything with this pin. Black's not going to generate anything with this and this. Develop your pieces. If, C3, get ready to play D4. Slam that bishop. Build a center. Castle. D3. Prepare bishop E3, and if black takes, you can take back with the F-pawn. You got attacking chances on the F-file. H3 is a terrible move, and I see it so often. But, you know, white's rated high 1600s. I don't get it. Okay? Guys need to stop moving these rook pawns. It's killing you. It's like you're running a race with somebody and giving a 50-yard head start. Okay? Now black starts doing what white should have done. Black's getting ready to make a pawn center. Oh, black does the same thing. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, for crying out loud, what's wrong with this move? Tempo. Hey. Now maybe you're going to drop a pawn. Well, big deal. Maybe not. Let's see. If you take, you develop my knight. Thank you. Now you can maybe force the isolated queen pawn on black. With this move, maybe not. Let's see. Check can be met by bishop c3. Now you can force the isolated queen pawn on black, but black's ahead in development. It's kind of like the Joko piano with colors reversed. Black should be okay here. All right, so both of you missed your pawn to queen 4 move. English descriptors describes the same move from either perspective. Okay, H6, bad move. All right. Now bringing the queen out early. Well, it's kind of safe there. C6 is covered. Now the weakness of H3 kind of shows itself. If the queen on D1 is tied down to guarding the knight, because there's this pawn on G2 is overworked because of this weakness. See, these weaknesses add up. There's a lot of and now, you know, what's defending the square G3? Not the pawn on F2, it's pinned. Who said the defensive power of pinned piece is purely imaginary? Well, he's right. Was that Nycdj? I should know that. You know, one of these things you know but you forget. Black's almost got the better game even with this wasted move because, see, black hasn't committed to castling yet. Black's ready to launch a kingside attack. It's another reason you want to move these rook pawns up. It brings the potential tension to bear much quicker. Black can blast open files on the king side. I like black's game here. I don't like white's at all. All right. Uh-oh, what is this? I'm going to do a trick. I'm going to hope you don't see I trap your bishop. My goodness, come on. You do this against players rated under 800. Okay? That's who you do it against. You have a plan here. Let's get some more development. You know, knight here, pawn here, pawn G5, knight from F8 to G6. All kinds of, you know, interesting plans to launch an attack against the weakened white king side. All right, so A5. No, you're not going to win my bishop. Now, what happens? Okay, I was thinking about this move, but I liked keeping this bishop on the board for potential sacrifice. But if white takes, black gets an open F file and can still do all kinds of attacks. White captures. Uh-oh, he took with the wrong piece. Okay, take with the F pawn. Why do you take with the F pawn? Well, look at that pawn. It's powerful. It's keeping white out all kinds of squares. Okay, number one. Number two, you got a half open F file to work with. If you get your queen is occupying your knight square, but if you can get a knight to h5, it's ready to hop into f4. Plenty of attacking chances for black in this type of position. I take you with the queen. Well, it's okay, but f pawn was better. All right, move forward. Queen e2. Now white wants the f5 square. No, you're not going in there, black says. Now he comes back. It's one of these situations where white is giving black 2 free moves. Tell you what, black, let's compare here. Watch this. I've done this before. I'll do it again. Watch how the white position has changed when I click back a couple of moves. It hasn't. But it's white's move. But what white's basically saying, black, I'll tell you what, it's my move, but I'm going to give you the move. I'm going to give you 2 moves. Even though it's my move, I'm giving you 2 moves. As long as one of them is g6, you can play 2 moves in a row. Black says, okay, fine. Now let me think of my next move. Okay, I'm going to develop this knight. Maybe that's why black took with the queen to be able to develop this knight. Well, you should have put your queen on f6 in the first place. Okay. I like black's game. Now white should take with the f-pawn for all the same reasons. Yes, okay. Keeps that knight out of f4. Black would have had a great attack. Since one of the drawbacks, let's back this up. Here's one of the problems with this a5, a4 move. A5 and then white played a4. In this case, the bishop could have comfortably dropped back to b6, and if white takes, take back with the a pawn, and then black has an open file. That white must stop and spend a tempo with a3, weakening queenside ever so slightly. Okay, that's why a5 was another reason why a5 wasn't the right move, but you can't take it back. Okay, so now I'm starting to like, that wasn't the right way. Okay, since you haven't followed through with your kingside attack, it was safer to A, keep your king in the center and try to attack white's king, or B, castle kingside and call the game about even. Now white suddenly has an attack in the making of his own, if he'll start a pawn roller. Let's see what he does. Okay, knight a2. That's preparing b4. And he plays b3. Didn't want to lose his a pawn. Well, okay. I think you could play b4 here. Let's see. b4. If pawn takes, knight takes, you got open b file. You got an a pawn to run down and bust black open with. If black takes the a4 pawn, b can take a5. You got an open b file. Okay, so b3. Excuse me. Anyway. No, you're not going to open that b file. So black managed to get some pieces off. If you're going to move your king, the king should have walked over here, where he's safe. Okay. Here comes the attack. And let's see. I know somewhere in here, I know white missed a win. Yeah, I think white's winning right now because he's just up... He's up a clear pawn. Well, he's up 2 pawns, but he can't keep them both. Trying to remember the line. Let's see. I looked at this a few days ago as I'm catching up. He's still up. No, he's not up a pawn now. There's no f pawn, I'm thinking. White's done something wrong here. There was a clear... Oh, I know what it was. Here was the missed win. Queen takes. And this queen penetration is going to be incredibly strong. And rook takes more or less balance things out. And the game is going to head into a very level ending. And neither side wanted to take a draw. I don't know how many draws were offered. We're not to the dead draw yet, but we will be. But really, there's not much happening here. White has one weakness, but it's not enough. White can even lose that pawn and still draw with careful play. So I'm just going to kind of go through the moves fast because there's a lot of them. We're at move 39, and this goes up to uh, 92. So there was I looked through it to see if either side ever made a blunder that allowed a potential win, uh, but neither side did. Although you could blunder into lost king and pawn ending at some time, at some points, but this is virtually a dead draw. Although I did win a game once uh, where I was able to turn my rook pawn into a knight pawn because there was a rook exchange, and also gave me a winning king and pawn ending. But other than that, this game is a dead draw. And I was looking to see if White could ever set that up. And the game I mentioned was played back in 1979. I remember the game well. I went till like 1:30 in the morning. I had a 6-0 score in a round robin tournament. I was clearly going to win the tournament, the club championship out in Riverside. But I wanted to get a perfect score, and I was playing relatively one of the weakest players in the field, and I didn't play it very well, too overconfident, and he had a draw, and I probably would have taken it, but I wanted to get the perfect score, and I finally put him to sleep and got the win. But it's basically a dead draw. So either there was a lot to this. This video is 41 minutes. There's not much to this ending. I really don't know why they took the draw. But I guess this is a good lesson on moving too quick. What can I say? Except thank you so much for bearing with me and watching this video, and check all the others out. You guys are going to learn a lot about chess. If you just follow my program, follow me. Okay? Commit to it. Thanks so much. Take care.